So, Prince William is handed a report behind closed palace doors, and within minutes, the mood inside the royal household changes completely. What began as whispers surrounding a lavish luxury yacht and a growing wave of public criticism suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. Insiders claim tensions rise fast, private conversations turn heated, and William is forced to consider a move few expected. The deeper you look, the more this story exposes a royal dispute that reaches far beyond one scandal and straight into the future of the monarchy. But first, we want to hear from you. If a royal controversy threatens the monarchy's image, should senior royals take immediate action? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy uncovering the stories behind palace headlines, please subscribe. Camilla's yacht link shocks William. Alright, so here's what happened. While Prince William was quietly working behind the scenes to tighten the rules around who senior royals could associate with, a discovery emerged that threatened to undermine everything he had been trying to achieve. And the most surprising part? The controversy was linked directly to Queen Camilla. The story did not explode because of a dramatic leak or a palace insider speaking out. Instead, it surfaced through something far more ordinary. A routine maritime record, the kind of document almost nobody pays attention to, revealed that a luxury yacht had been docked along the southern coast of France during the summer of 2025. At first glance, it looked like nothing unusual. But once investigators started connecting details, the picture became far more complicated. At the very same time, William and Catherine were carrying out a busy schedule of public duties across Britain. Camilla was reportedly spending several days aboard a privately owned superyacht. What immediately raised eyebrows was the complete absence of any official record. There was no announcement, no briefing for royal reporters, and no mention in the usual palace channels that normally track the movements of senior members of the royal family. As journalists dug deeper, attention shifted toward the people connected to the vessel. The yacht's owner had never been convicted of any crime, yet his name had appeared repeatedly in European lobbying disclosures over the years. Other guests reportedly included influential business figures, media executives, and political donors whose interest touched areas that often overlap with royal patronages, land management, and heritage projects. Then came the detail that made palace officials especially uneasy. A photograph briefly posted online appeared to place several of those individuals together during the trip. The image disappeared quickly, but not before copies had been saved. Within days, reporters in Britain and Europe were comparing records, verifying locations, and asking difficult questions. By the time inquiries reached palace offices in August, the situation had become impossible to ignore. For William, the issue was never simply a holiday. It struck at the heart of a broader effort he had been championing for months, creating clearer boundaries between the monarchy and powerful private interests. And as pressure mounted, many began wondering whether this unexpected controversy would push him to take far stronger action than anyone had anticipated. A controversial trip was already raising eyebrows, but the bigger mystery was happening behind palace walls. How did Prince William learn about it before the public did? Who felt compelled to alert him? And why did that warning lead to a new set of royal rules? Stay tuned as the remarkable story unfolds. William knew before rumors spread. The most surprising part of this story isn't that a controversial trip happened. It's that Prince William already seemed to know about it long before reporters started asking questions. Somewhere inside a very small circle of people connected to the voyage, someone decided the future king needed to hear what was happening immediately. And in royal circles, that kind of message is never sent by accident. By the time whispers of the journey began spreading through palace corridors in the summer, William had already introduced a new set of rules for senior royals. The guidance was clear, strict, and impossible to misunderstand. After years of scandals that had damaged public trust, particularly those linked to Prince Andrew, there was little appetite for another controversy involving gifts, hospitality, or wealthy individuals with interests connected to the crown. The instructions were circulated to royal households and treated as mandatory. Camilla's office received them too. Yet what happened next reportedly left Kensington Palace simmering behind closed doors. Not because William is known for dramatic confrontations, quite the opposite. People who have worked around him often describe someone who rarely raises his voice and almost never argues in public. His approach is quieter and far more calculated. When he reaches a decision, he simply moves forward, and the outcome often becomes clear only much later. That is why attention quickly turned to the details surrounding the yacht. The vessel, Esperanza III, operated under a Maltese registration and was linked through corporate structures based in Luxembourg. While such arrangements are common in the luxury yacht world, they can make it difficult to identify exactly who is funding what. And that is where questions began multiplying. Royal procedures require certain gifts, travel arrangements, and hospitality benefits to be declared through internal channels and reviewed as part of transparency records. Yet observers noticed that the July trip did not appear in the records many expected to see. That absence fueled even more curiosity when attention shifted to the company connected to the yacht. One director, a British businessman mentioned in a parliamentary report from 2022 concerning influence in property matters, drew particular interest. No wrongdoing was alleged, but the connection was enough to raise eyebrows because the issues discussed in that report touched areas where royal endorsement can still carry significant weight. A yacht trip seemed like a harmless getaway, yet it quickly raised questions that refused to disappear. What transformed a private holiday into a growing palace concern? Who really paid for it? Why did the answers spark suspicion? And how did a simple explanation evolve into a debate about trust and transparency? Let's find out. The yacht questions won't disappear. Nobody expected a yacht trip to spark one of the most uncomfortable questions circulating behind palace walls. At first glance, it looked like the kind of story that would disappear after a few headlines. But the deeper officials looked, the less it seemed to be about a holiday. And the more it became a story about influence, transparency, and trust. The real concern wasn't the yacht itself. It was who paid for it. When questions were raised, the explanation offered was simple. It was a private matter. Under normal circumstances, that answer might have ended the discussion. But this situation was different. The businessman connected to the trip reportedly had financial ties to royal charities, including organizations linked to projects that had spent years building their public reputation on accountability. Inside Kensington Palace, that explanation reportedly landed badly. William's team wasn't satisfied. They wanted details, not reassurances. Within days, requests were made for a complete account of how the trip had been funded. The response they hoped for never fully arrived, and that only increased the concern. Then another discovery changed the mood entirely. Palace officials learned that a similar visit had allegedly taken place during the summer of 2023. That earlier trip had attracted quiet attention at the time, but was never formally pursued. What once appeared to be a single incident suddenly looked like something much larger. The same businessman had reportedly reappeared years later, raising questions that nobody could easily dismiss. As advisors dug through records, they found themselves comparing travel dates, charity accounts, and corporate activities. A donation of $40,000 drew particular attention. They also reviewed documents connected to a heritage-related application in Somerset during 2024. No evidence suggested anyone improperly influenced decisions, but that wasn't the issue troubling officials. The concern was how everything looked when viewed together. By late August, conversations inside palace circles had become increasingly tense. What began as a story about hospitality had evolved into a debate about palace governance itself. Then came the meeting during the first week of September 2025, held at Kensington Palace, not Buckingham Palace. It sent a message before anyone spoke. William arrived carrying a thick folder of printed documents, and as it landed on the table, everyone in the room understood that this discussion was no longer routine. The palace expected answers, not another mystery. Yet one simple question transformed an ordinary meeting into something far more unsettling. What was hidden inside that thick folder? Who chose to ignore it? And why did its contents begin unraveling a story that no one inside the palace was prepared to confront? Let's uncover the astonishing details. The folder that changed everything. So, the room wasn't filled with shouting, raised voices, or dramatic confrontations. In fact, what made the moment so unsettling was how calm it was. A thick folder had been placed on the table, packed with financial records, charity statements, shipping logs, lobbying disclosures, and details connected to a series of trips that few people inside the palace had paid much attention to at the time. Then came a question so simple that it instantly changed the mood in the room. Who had seen this information and decided it didn't need to go any further? What followed felt less like a meeting and more like a slow unraveling of a mystery. The deeper the papers were examined, the more uncomfortable the gaps became. There were references to donations, planning applications, private travel arrangements, and connections that seemed ordinary on the surface but looked very different when placed side by side. Somewhere along the way, important details had been noticed, flagged, and then quietly left behind. As the discussion continued, attention turned toward what King Charles had actually known. Yes, he had been informed about a trip during the summer of 2023, but only in the most casual way. He knew where the journey was taking place and roughly when it would happen. What he apparently did not receive were the details that later became the focus of concern. Questions about ownership, financial links, and past lobbying activity had never been presented to him in a formal briefing. That discovery led to a tense standoff behind palace walls. Requests were made for complete disclosures, internal reviews, and a closer examination of outside connections. Yet every answer seemed to generate another question. Some information arrived only partially, while other pieces appeared to be missing altogether. The situation remained frozen until another unexpected detail surfaced from inside the royal system itself. Suddenly, a previously unnoticed meeting in London began attracting attention. A photograph taken in September 2025 only deepened the intrigue. The image showed the king attending a public event alone, despite earlier plans suggesting otherwise. Officials offered a routine explanation, but by then curiosity had grown. For many inside the palace, the issue was no longer about a single trip. It was about understanding how so much information could travel through the system without anyone fully connecting the dots. A seemingly ordinary absence raised a few eyebrows at first. Yet behind palace doors, it signaled a much deeper shift. What was really happening inside the monarchy? Who was gaining power? Who was losing influence? And how did Camilla's 2023 trip become linked to changes that were quietly reshaping the royal hierarchy? Let's unravel the details. Camilla's influence quietly starts fading. Inside the palace, one small absence caught attention for all the wrong reasons. To the public, it looked like a routine scheduling change. Behind closed doors, though, it hinted at something much bigger. The real story wasn't about a missed appearance at all. It was about who was making decisions, who was losing influence, and how the balance inside the monarchy was quietly shifting. By the time questions began swirling around Camilla's 2023 trip, the atmosphere within royal circles was already very different from what it had been just a few years earlier. King Charles, who revealed in February 2024 that he was undergoing cancer treatment, had been forced to adjust his schedule. Public duties were reduced, travel became more limited, and some days simply demanded rest rather than meetings and paperwork. When the person at the top cannot oversee every detail, someone else naturally steps forward. In this case, that role increasingly fell to Prince William. No official announcement declared a transfer of influence, yet many inside the palace could see it happening. Documents still reached the king, but more and more decisions were being handled by the heir waiting in the wings. That growing reality became impossible to ignore during a tense conversation between father and son. Charles reportedly believed that further scrutiny surrounding Camilla's trip could create a larger public controversy. He trusted her assurances and felt her explanation should settle the matter. William saw things differently. According to reports, He believed the paperwork raised questions that personal promises alone could not answer. The discussion was uncomfortable for everyone involved. Charles was defending the woman he had spent decades standing beside despite relentless criticism. William, meanwhile, was focused on accountability and protecting the institution's credibility. Neither man wanted a confrontation, yet neither was prepared to step back. When Charles asked for additional time, William agreed to wait just 72 hours. Those 3 days reportedly became some of the most tense the household had experienced in years. Conversations intensified, advisors were consulted, lawyers became involved, and behind palace walls, everyone understood that something far larger than a single trip was now at stake. Inside royal palaces, the most important changes often happen in silence, hidden from public view until their impact becomes impossible to ignore. But what really happened at a controversial 2023 meeting that sparked difficult questions for King Charles? Why did Camilla's seemingly simple response deepen the mystery instead of ending it? And what details remained concealed behind palace walls? Let's find out. Meeting mystery deepens further. So, one of the strangest things about life inside a royal palace is that the biggest changes rarely arrive with dramatic announcements. They happen quietly, almost invisibly, until one day everyone realizes the situation has completely changed. That was exactly the position King Charles found himself in after difficult questions began swirling around a meeting that had taken place in 2023. When the matter was eventually raised with Camilla, her response seemed straightforward enough. She said she had not attended the meeting and had no idea it had even happened. But instead of settling the issue, that answer created an even bigger mystery. If she truly knew nothing about it, then who had arranged it? And why had something involving people connected to her circle never been brought to her attention? Behind palace walls, those questions lingered far longer than anyone expected. Documents confirmed the meeting had occurred, making it impossible to dismiss. At the same time, explanations from those involved remained incomplete, leaving Charles caught in an uncomfortable position. He could not challenge the facts, yet he could not fully verify the account being offered to him either. By the time he placed a call to Prince William on a Thursday evening, much of the decision had already been made. The conversation was brief. Charles asked that everyone involved be treated fairly and that nothing be released publicly. Without his knowledge, William agreed. What was left unsaid carried far greater weight. For the first time, Charles could no longer guarantee the protection that had long surrounded Camilla. The effects appeared slowly. An autumn schedule prepared in July 2025 once included numerous appearances across places like Cardiff and Edinburgh. Yet, as the months passed, several engagements quietly moved to other members of the royal family. Nothing was cancelled. No explanation was offered. That is how influence fades in royal circles. Invitations stop arriving, meetings happen elsewhere, and important decisions move beyond your reach. Long before the public notices, the institution has already shifted, and everyone inside understands exactly what it means. Queen Camilla still appeared beside King Charles, and to the public, everything looked perfectly normal. But why were royal insiders quietly sensing a shift in power behind palace walls? What unseen developments were changing the balance of influence, and why was nobody willing to speak about them openly? Let's uncover the intriguing details. Something unusual was happening behind palace walls, and the most interesting part was that nobody ever stood up and announced it. There was no dramatic statement, no public confrontation, and certainly no official declaration. Yet by the time autumn of 2025 was drawing to a close, many inside royal circles had already noticed that the balance of influence seemed to be moving in a different direction. What made it so fascinating was how subtle it all looked from the outside. Camilla still appeared beside King Charles at official events. Her title remained unchanged. To the public, everything seemed perfectly normal. But inside the royal household, small decisions were beginning to add up in a way that was hard to ignore. One clue appeared when several engagements that had once been linked to Camilla suddenly found a new face. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped into important appearances, including major charity functions and leadership events. The transitions happened so smoothly that some observers wondered whether preparations had been made long before the changes became visible. At the same time, Camilla's circle was becoming noticeably smaller. Staff members were reassigned, roles were reorganized, and positions quietly disappeared without replacement. By November, a team that had once been much larger had been reduced significantly. It was not the kind of change that grabs headlines, but within an institution built on tradition and hierarchy, such adjustments carry meaning. Then there was the matter of information. For years, senior royals had routinely received detailed briefing papers covering everything from domestic affairs to international developments. After October, however, the range of material reaching Camilla reportedly became far narrower. The shift suggested that access was no longer automatic but carefully limited. Perhaps the clearest signal came during a private gathering at Highgrove House in Gloucestershire. King Charles spent the weekend with Prince William and Catherine, while Camilla remained at Clarence House in London. Officially, it was described as a simple family visit. Unofficially, many within palace circles paid very close attention. Around the same period, Prince William delivered a private speech in November of 2025 that left a lasting impression on those present. According to attendees, he spoke about institutions losing their strength when they place individuals above integrity. He never named anyone. He never had to. By then, the palace's quiet transformation was already telling its own story. Royal ceremonies and public appearances may capture attention, but a far bigger story has been unfolding behind the scenes. Why has Prince William's approach, since inheriting the Duchy of Cornwall, surprised so many insiders? And what clues suggest he may be quietly reshaping the future of the monarchy itself? Let's find out. William's quiet royal power shift. But one of the most fascinating things happening behind palace walls right now has almost nothing to do with royal ceremonies, glittering state banquets, or public appearances. It's about power, control, and a future that looks very different from the monarchy people have known for decades. What makes the story so remarkable is that the clues were hiding in plain sight. Since September 2022, when King Charles took the throne and Prince William inherited the Duchy of Cornwall, a vast estate stretching across England and the Isles of Scilly, William has been running it with a style that surprised many insiders. An estate bringing in around £30 million a year isn't managed through handshakes and assumptions. Under William, old arrangements disappeared, paperwork replaced, trust-based agreements, and every major decision became something that could be tracked, reviewed, and explained. That same mindset now seems to be reshaping the monarchy itself. Those who have worked around William often describe someone who believes institutions are strongest when nothing is left to chance. The approach can also be seen in the Royal Foundation, where goals are clearly defined, finances are published, and projects that fail to deliver rarely survive for long. To William, accountability is not a preference. It is protection that helps explain why the royal family today looks smaller than ever. Prince Andrew and Prince Harry are gone from working royal life, while several extended family members have quietly faded from major duties. The spotlight now rests largely on William, Catherine, Charles, and Princess Anne, and perhaps the biggest shift involves Catherine herself. After returning to public duties in nearly 2025, she stepped into a far more influential role, attending high-level discussions and helping shape long-term strategy. Some insiders now view her not simply as the Princess of Wales, but as William's closest partner in building the institution's future, which makes Camilla's situation especially striking. While she still stands beside the king, the center of influence appears to be moving elsewhere. And as questions about the future quietly grow, many wonder whether the monarchy William is creating has already chosen its next leaders. So, what do you think drove Prince William to take such drastic action against Camilla after the shocking luxury yacht scandal? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.